We are back here on SportsLine. Our special guest, Justin Bradford from Penalty Box Radio, the guy that pretty much one of the foremost authorities on hockey as it pertains to Nashville, Tennessee, and the Nashville Predators. Literally wrote the book on hockey, covers the Predators, covers the NHL. It's been great having you on.
Thanks for having me on again. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. You are welcome here anytime. All right. The prospect camp recently concluded last week. You were able to see the scrimmage, the prospect scrimmage. Pretty good crowd there at the Ford Ice Center. Great to see, obviously. And, they get a look at the future of the franchise. Who are some of the things that stood out when you watch the scrimmage?
Well, first, addressing the crowd, it just shows how much hockey is growing in Nashville, Tennessee. And the prospects that have been in the system for a few years even mention that as well. When you see well over 1,000 people packed into one rink of Ford Ice Center, standing room only, 3-4 people
on a 90-degree July day.
So it's perfect. It's perfect to come and watch prospects. It is their last taste of hockey till September. So they pack it in and they go there. They're chanting and cheering and enjoying the time. So just major props to the people in Nashville and coming out and supporting hockey at Ford Ice Center. But the prospects have really impressed me. One kid that I've always really enjoyed watching is Justin Kirkland. And he doesn't get as much talk about because his role in Kelowna, he played for the Kelowna Rockets, so another connection there with Colton Sissons, Shea Weber as well. But he's a big boy. he's about 6'4" or so, off skates. And he's already adding on the muscle. He's a left wing as well as a center, and he's kind of shifted into that center role. And you can see in his body build that he's going to be a great power forward. So I can see him eventually maybe sliding into that third line role and maybe mix it into the second line role, but he'll be playing in Milwaukee this year. So he's a name to watch out for because he was on a Kelowna Rockets team loaded with stars of really top picks. So Justin Kirkland's a name to watch. I've really enjoyed watching him play. He's a big body and a great shot as well. And I think he can kind of fit into that mix in the middle six somewhere in there in the near future.
Yeah, obviously one of the guys that everybody's keeping their eye on is obviously Kevin Fiala, former #1 draft pick, a guy that is really pushing to make the big club roster this fall. What do you see from him, and what are his chances on being on the Preds roster?
Well, first of all, I'll go ahead and say that when he was signing autographs, Kevin Fiala was wearing Cleveland Cavs hats.
There you go.
So he's been a Cavs fan, ever since he kind of came over to North America. He's been following that team. So just want to throw that out there if there's any Cavs fans out there. And it wasn't rigged for him to wear that hat either.
Yeah.
But Fiala definitely impressed again at camp, and leading point scorer for the Milwaukee Admirals, 50 points last season, matured a lot. That's been the thing for Kevin Fiala, that he thought he was going to make the roster right after being drafted, and he kind of had a piece of humble pie slapped in his face twice. Now, granted, he came up last year, scored a goal in his in his first game, and it was okay. I mean, it was a good call-up. He's going to be there soon. I still don't think at the beginning of the season he makes the roster. He still has a little bit further to go, which is okay. You don't want to rush a kid like that because eventually he's going to be playing top 6 minutes when he's ready and able to. He'll push for a roster spot as well. He could make the team out of camp, but I don't think he stays with Nashville. He still has a little bit more maturing to go, and he's done tremendous based on last season where he flipped off the crowd in Milwaukee at a morning game full of children.
Oh, gosh.
And
not good.
He's come a long way since then in terms of maturity, and Dean Nevison, who's the coach for the Milwaukee Admirals, has helped him along the way. But there's other prospects in Milwaukee that are going to push him, and that's what's healthy, is that healthy push you need of players right behind you vying for a spot.
In just a second, I want to go back to the draft because you had kind of an adventure covering the draft. But I wanted to ask you this. Carter Hutton obviously leaves for the St. Louis Blues. Who do you think is the top candidate to be that #2 goaltender behind Pekka Rinne?
Well, as David Poyle even said, it's Marek Mazanec's Toulouse. I think that's going to be his role. And if people want to say Jussi Saros will come in, but you want your top goaltending prospect to play more games.
Sure.
He's not going to get that at the backup role to Pekka Rinne of all goaltenders. He'll play 12 games, if anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's more healthy to have Saros in Milwaukee become the full-on starter, because he split that role with Mazanec last year in Milwaukee. The full starter in Milwaukee, you get him seasoned even more to where next season he could come in and potentially back up Pekka. They maybe go 60-40 in that role and really build him to be the next goaltender for the Nashville Predators. So it's Marek Mazanec's to lose. Maybe they bring in a veteran goaltender for camp just to give him that extra push. I think that would be healthy to sign a guy to like $575,000, 1 year veteran that's trying to get back in it, give that little push, because you never know what'll happen. But it's the backup role for the Predators has been kind of shady over the past few years when you think about it. But it's so tough to bring in someone when they know they're only going to play maybe 15 games.
Sure.
It's tough to get someone to commit to saying you're basically the practice goalie and you get shot at, and every once in a while on the road we'll let you play.
Yeah. For those that aren't familiar with Justin, this guy loves hockey, okay? This guy lives and breathes the sport. Originally born in Michigan, right? Moved here when you were a youngster. And a guy that was instrumental and still to this day in getting people educated about hockey. You love hockey so much that you drove to Buffalo, New York to cover the draft, and you had quite an adventure. You got to tell us about that.
I did. It was in 4 days. Man, it sounded like a lot, but it's 1,581 miles in 4 days. Columbus, Ohio was my stopping point midway each time going up there. Drove up, finished the drive on the Friday, got there in time for the first round, covered that, went back to the hotel with my cohort, Jeremy K. Gover, the Nashville Predators Radio Network, went to bed, got up, had breakfast at the arena, covered rounds 2 through 7 that took place all before 1 o'clock. They pound it out, folks, with the NHL draft. They go from the table and they roll, and then basically left an hour after that, did a video, and Jeremy K. Gover, ditched me at the airport, and I had to drive all the way back to Nashville by myself.
I'm so glad you did that, because you weren't going to do that. We were talking. You weren't going to do that. I said, throw him under the bus. Throw him under the bus.
Had to find a hotel.
We love you, Gove, but you ditched my man here.
Had to find a hotel at the rest area on the toll road in New York State, and try to find a place. And I ended up staying in the Columbus area again, and drove all the way back. And then I had a hockey game Sunday night, so I had to get back into town in time to play for the Mighty Drunks at Fordyce Center.
My goodness. But you would do it all again, right?
Absolutely. I love it. It was fun. Fun adventures.
It's funny because we were talking about this off the air. You look at what's going on with NBA free agency and where's this guy going to sign and what's going to happen here. The NFL is pretty much 24/7. We never close. The NHL is becoming that way, isn't it? I mean, in terms of being a year-round sport. I mean, there's still a lot of buzz about the league, and we're barely into July here.
There really is, and you think of all the things that have happened this offseason, that being Las Vegas gets awarded a team, you have your NHL awards, you have these big trades happen, and for those of you that may not know, in a span of 20 minutes, 3 major events happened in hockey, whereas you had Taylor Hall getting traded to New Jersey for a defenseman that was ridiculous. Then right after that, you have Weber and Subban trade. Then right after that, Steven Stamkos signs an extension in Tampa Bay to stay there, who was the most coveted free agent coming out. All that has been in 20 minutes. Imagine what Twitter was doing then. So you have that buzz in the offseason that continues the sport and keeping it front of mind. Then you have free agency that starts on July 1st every year, and then that happened for a couple of days, and then most teams have their development camps. You see #1 overall pick Austin Matthews donning the Maple Leafs jersey for the first time ever, and then all these different teams covering that.
No pressure there, by the way.
None at all. And through the middle of July. And so it really does keep it going to where really there's only about a 6-week span of dead time when it comes to the NHL.
We have less than a minute to go in this segment, but I wanted to ask you, has Bettman done enough to market the league to the so-called casual fan, the non-traditional hockey fan? What needs to be done?
I think he's made a lot of right steps, but I think most of that has fallen on the actual teams themselves. As we see with the Nashville Predators, they've done a phenomenal job of getting to the casual fan, getting butts in the seats, and bringing the game to people like Fordyce Center. You go to a community that you have to bring the sport to them for them to experience it. And they've done that. You see other teams like Atlanta who didn't have good ownership in terms of wanting to really push the team. They thought it was a money-making venture. Owning sports teams isn't always a money-making venture.
Right.
And it failed. So it really comes down to ownership and leadership for each team. Bettman gives, I think, the opportunity, and then they have to take it and run with it. And that's what you've seen with the Predators with leadership like Sean Henry and really pushing that forward to make sure people go and watch the game.
No question about it. We'll wrap up the show after this. Stay with us.